right, well, wanted to move our discussion to branding. As I said, this is one of my favorite parts of the class because I think that branding is just so important. It's so core to everything that you do in marketing, and it is so important that you maintain your brand and also make it as good as possible. So let's take a look at this. But before we talk about what a brand is, I know I have the question, what is a brand? But let's start by talking about what a brand is, what you think a brand is, and maybe what a brand is not. Some ideas that you have about what a brand. Let's start with what a brand is.
It's an image.
An image, okay.
Everything that makes that image up.
Okay.
The company's story, what the company's mission is, what the company's selling, that all boils down to that perception of what the company truly is.
Okay. Anybody else want to add any detail to what Nick just said? Or other thoughts maybe that what a brand is? Yes.
Again, a brand is, because people who are involved in branding use whatever resource, vehicle, message, image, they use whatever tools they have to consistently deliver a specific brand identity.
All right.
So, so that same image, that same perception is what they're striving to create in everyone's mind.
All right, hold on to that thought, because you made a very good point. Anyone else want to add to just what a brand is? A very excellent answer, Billy.
Well, the easiest way to do it would be through an example. I mean.
Okay, well, give me an example.
Take North Face, and I've seen a number of presentations from North Face, so it's an easy one. But what is North Face? I mean, North Face is about rugged, outdoors. It's about something that you can wear that, yeah, you can wear it on the streets in New York City, but you can also wear it in the Alps. And it's about everything that comes with that is what North Face is about.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're a deep brand. Some things aren't that deep of a brand. I mean, Carefree is chewing gum. You know, or whoever they are now. But
so what makes that a brand then, as opposed to just a set of products or a company?
Well, first of all, I would say what the product is.
Okay.
And secondary to that is the story behind it.
All right.
What are people doing with that? What is, you know, people are mountain climbing with the gear. People are keeping warm with it. You can live in this stuff, literally.
All right. Very good. Very good. Anyone else? Oh, I heard some very good things in here. We're going to come back to what Billy said. But let's actually look at what it's not. Because there's a lot of misconceptions about branding. Just as when we talked about how marketing is not just advertising and selling, it's a lot more. And we've been certainly talking about a lot more things than just advertising and selling in this class. I also want to bring you back to what a brand is by showing you what some of the misperceptions are. First of all, again, it's not advertising. So just like we said, marketing is not just advertising. A brand actually is not advertising. Okay, you may advertise a brand, but it's not what a brand is. So I hope that makes sense. It's not a logo. And nobody made this mistake in here, but I've heard in the past people say, well, Ford is the blue oval, or you know, just all these different logos that you've seen your entire lives. It represents the brand. A logo is, and it's part of the brand, but it is not actually the brand. Company name. And I just mentioned Ford as my example. Ford is not the brand, it's just the name that represents the brand. And we'll get to make more sense of that in a moment. And then finally, it's not a product, okay? Which you kind of went that way, and you're not wrong. It's just that's a part of the brand. It's not what the brand actually is. So what is a brand then? And we're having this discussion, but before we go any further, what I wanted to do is read to you what I think is an absolutely lousy definition from a very reputable organization. And a very excellent organization in higher learning, but yet I think they completely missed the mark on this one. So let me read you the definition, see what you think of it. A name, sign, or symbol used to identify items or services of the sellers and to differentiate them from goods of competitors. Why do you think I think that is a lousy definition?
Everything you said it shouldn't be.
Right, but what do I, you know, and I don't
There's no
purport to
value.
say that I'm any more important than this source, and it's actually the Dictionary of Business and Management. So, very well known dictionary. Yet I think they completely missed the mark on this definition. Yeah, I just said it's not all those things, but why?
Doesn't
And it kind of comes back to what Billy said. So.
It doesn't communicate the value either of the.
Okay, good. It has to communicate value. That's not quite what I'm looking for yet. Billy, you want to just repeat what you said?
What did I say?
All right, no, that's fine.
I mean, you know,
You used a P word that was very critical to what we're talking about. Did you remember?
Product.
Perception.
Okay. What I was thinking about was identity. It's just the creation of an identity through use of whatever vehicles you have to create that perception.
Okay, but that's still leaning towards misconception, in my opinion, and here is why. All those things represent what the brand is, but I believe that the brand resides up here.
Right, it's creation of
It
an
is
image.
purely a perception.
Right.
And a great example of this, if I use the word Walmart, which is of course a name for a brand,
Right.
I'd have half the room saying, "Oh, I hate that company for a litany of political reasons and a litany of ways that they, treat their vendors and all these other things." And I'd have the other side of the room saying, "Oh, I love Walmart. Their prices can't be beat, and I can get everything I want for a fraction of the cost of other companies." And typically a very, very polarizing brand. Now, it's still the same brand, right? It still has the same logo, still has all those things we said weren't, but it's the perception. So the perception on the one side is a very negative thing, and the perception on the other side is a positive. And so every brand has those perceptions. And what I think is an excellent definition of a brand, this is from Building Brands, a brand is a collection of perceptions in the minds of the consumer. And so it's between your ears. It's not something that you can hold on to. There's nothing tangible about a brand, but when you're the organization that has a certain brand, you want to make sure that you protect that and promote it so that for most people the perception, you can try to promote the perception in another way is what I'm trying to say,
Right.
so that for most people they think a certain way about the brand.
Right.
And that's what you're trying to do as a marketer, is to promote that idea.
It's not always visceral. And
Right.
And
No, it's hopefully very positive, and if you're the marketer and you're in charge.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you close your eyes and they give you. He mentioned North Face. Now, see, that would be a product that I'm not necessarily as familiar. King of brands is Nike. Nike. Aside from the just do it, a lot of people don't even think about that, but Nike is perceptually is the preeminent sports apparel company in the world. You may think about shoes, a lot of tennis shoes or whatever it is, but the brand Nike and then how they associate themselves with the best celebrities and the most successful professional sports. But Nike as a brand is perceived, I would think, by most people as the top, as the gold standard in terms of sports apparel.
Let's run with that example, because there's going to be some people that look at Nike as the company that has sweatshops in East Asia making the products, and so you get selling it more. Whether you think that's a good business practice, or you think it's an abomination for. There's a big void there. We kind of almost have a Nike divide, a Walmart divide there as well. Maybe not as much, because there is definitely a lot of value in the brand, and people love the Nike brand. And another thing is, it depends on where you are. Because remember, yes, Nike is absolute king here in the States. In Europe, however, Adidas does very well. And that's more of the soccer culture. I know you're coming from the basketball culture. But it definitely it depends on where the brand is as well.
When you think about Tiger Woods,
sure,
LeBron James, whoever's sort of big in that particular sport.
Well, certainly Michael Jordan when it was
right. They
absolutely.
had So I understand.
Jackson.
And that's valid. It is geographical. There are geographical considerations, I guess, if that's part of what you're saying.
Great.
Starbucks is another one.
Yeah.
Because it's also, I think it's relative to competition. Effective branding separates you from an image standpoint from your competitors. I mean, there are a lot of coffee houses around, but Starbucks, again, you close your eyes and they say Starbucks, you know you know exactly what it is, you know, when you walk in.
Well, and how can you, if you're a coffee shop, how can you charge what Starbucks charges for coffee if there's not a huge brand value perception? That I'm going to get the best cup of coffee that I could get.
Plus, I think they're
in the mind of that consumer.
They're good philanthropists because they give back to people that. You saw a video a couple classes ago where the people that harvested the beans, Starbucks gave them better equipment so they could make more money and then pay back the loans at a much cheaper way. So they showed their good side too, that they're not just trying to reap everybody.
Well, and that's all part of the trying to create a positive image with your brand, and those things all can go a long way to having people think positively, like in that regard. I want to give you a in my own words definition. Brand consists of the general impressions consumers have about an organization, its products and or services. Kind of the same thing, but that's me talking, and wink, wink, nod, nod, that might be on the quiz. So just so that you know that. So why is having a respected brand so important?
Repeat customers, business.
Huge, right? We talked about the differences between just achieving customer satisfaction, which is wonderful, but a whole nother level of great for a company is to have loyal customers, because they're not just satisfied, which means they were happy with their purchase, but they could certainly go somewhere else. To a loyal customer, that I'm so happy I'm never even going to consider the competition. Or at least it's going to take an awful lot for me to consider that competition, right? So excellent.
Well, not to oversimplify, but if you don't have a respected brand, you have an unrespected brand. You know what I mean? Disrespect, thank you. We're proud of English today. But you want to talk about a disrespected brand? Look at Northridge 20 years ago when it was still in business. That was a disrespected brand. It had nothing to do with what the company did, but you can go to Northridge. You just didn't go there. That was not, ooh, boy, Capitol Court. And you look at the what was happening there.
Milwaukee.
Yeah, as horrible as that sounds, that's
as far as the rest of the state is
Detroit.
Yeah.
You want to talk about brand, what brand is a city? How's Detroit working?
Well, you're talking about perception of the city, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. So sure, that definitely can be, in its own way, a brand. Here we are in Milwaukee, right? Does anyone know, let me put it this way, if I was to ask you today, who is the king of beers? Who would I be talking about? Budweiser, right? Anheuser-Busch is a company, but Budweiser is the beer, right?
What did you say?
I said Miller.
Oh
I mean, it's right
Good
in
Milwaukee,
Milwaukee.
good Milwaukee woman here, but the one that sells most in the United States is Budweiser, whether you like it or not.
It tastes great.
I'm partial to Miller, Christina, but it's the number one seller.
Champagne of bottled beers.
I don't drink it. That's just what I think of.
No, I'm serious. You never heard that? The champagne of bottled beers?
The reason that I ask is if I was to ask you in 1960 who was the king of beers, it would be a different answer. Now, that's their branding, right? That's part of their, that's one of their slogans, is that Budweiser is the king of beers. But if I was to ask you who the number one beer in America was, it's a different answer. It's not Miller and it's not Budweiser. Does anyone know the answer to this?
Corona.
Schlitz?
Yes, but it's not Corona. I'll tell you, it was a Milwaukee beer, but it wasn't Miller.
Old Milwaukee. Pabst?
Good guess, not it.
What about
Schlitz?
Schlitz.
Oh, at one time.
Schlitz was the number one brand
At one
in
time.
America. I said in the 60s.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's when it was
Number
good.
Does anyone know why Schlitz went from being the number one brand in the world, well, I don't know if it was the world, but at least in the United States, to being unheard of until just recently when the brand was reestablished?
Well, surely.
I can tell you, the guy I used to work for had the largest Schlitz distributorship on the West Coast.